Let's maybe share some experiences or ask questions. Yeah, definitely.
Oh my gosh. It was like at first holding the three, I couldn't do it. I could do one, like one note and then another note and then another note. And then after a while it became a chord
Yeah,
and it just it just was like this chord that in harmony. I felt in harmony.
yeah,
And I had the thought, like, why am I apologizing for who I am?
right.
Across the board. It was just really good.
Yeah. So she was saying that, it's kind of normal, like when you try to balance things out. Um, like you go, okay, I'm trying to balance them out, but it's hard to do it right off the bat. I mean, part of what you're doing is you are fatiguing the part of the intellect's tendency for fixation instead of trying to go, okay, stop fixating, stop doing this. You need to, redirect yourself and do this or that. You're like, look, the intellect, that's part of what it does is it fixates, right? That's what it does. So give it a task, make it do what it wants to do, and then do it to the point where it goes, I give up. Right? It's like, how you see in the movies or a TV show where, or, from your youth or whatever, your mom finds a pack of cigarettes or something, goes, okay, you want to smoke cigarettes? You're going to smoke this whole pack. And then you get sick. And then you're like, I never want a cigarette again. Right? It's the same idea, but for the intellect. Okay, you want to fixate? Here, fixate on this. And not only that, balance all three, like fixate on them and balance them. Right? And so what happens over a period of time, the intellect goes, okay, I give up on the fixation for now. Like I'll fixate again, but I need a break, right? And so then you're allowing for a different interaction between the intellect and intuition, and you're allowing for more intuitive thought to come into the mind, right? Because like when the intellect is strong, and it's not used to bringing in intuition has some experience and goes, here's some information, and the mind is like, nope, nope, I didn't generate it. If you don't agree with me, then it's because you're not smart, right? So you fatigue the mind, and then it allows for intuition to come in, and then instead of having this little battle between the two sides, the intellect is just like, "Ah, okay, whatever. Yes, I'll process it. Yes, I'll change my perceptions and how I see things. Ugh, whatever. Like, I was going to do it anyway. All the little weird things that your mind does, right? That's just even like that kind of process that I was just joking about is the intellect trying to maintain itself, right? And so,
Is our intellect a teenage girl?
yes, it is our intellect. Apparently, my intellect is a teenage girl, apparently, according to Samantha. And so, OMG. Right?
Flip your ponytail.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
right.
right. So, even if you're not aware of the mechanisms, it's still happening. But like after the fact, it's nice to go like, oh, this is what's happening. So that you can utilize it as a tool. Like going back to like Laura was like, okay, I have this project at the end of the week. Like if you know the mechanics of like how three brain works, you can go, I'm having a hard time coming up with new ideas. Look at my notes. How do I generate new ideas? And you start following the steps. I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, for this class, I have so many notes. They're from all over the place. I don't know what direction to do. I'll sit and I'll do the practice, not even for very long, like 10 minutes. And then I'll go, I'll just have to sit with it for a little while. And, within 5 or 10 minutes, I'm like, shh, I'm writing. Like, shh, shh. No, I never do that. But, you know, anyway.
Go ahead, Robert, then Teresa.
So I want to echo a little bit of what you said about tiring the intellect.
Mhm.
Uh, those three projects that are sort of in my space at the moment, I was staring at the list for one of them, and I couldn't figure out why it seemed so overwhelming. And this, when we went through this last cycle of three brains and balancing it, it dawned on me some of the things on the list weren't even supposed to be on the list. And
Oh,
it's like,
yeah,
oh,
there you
the
go.
list. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, this project isn't is overwhelming
right.
anymore. So that's one part of it. I had to say that. There's a part of me, the intellectual side, the computer guy who, brain and logic is a key part of it, that says when I'm sitting down to program, shouldn't I be all logical?
Right,
And part of me, now my intuition stepping and saying, no, not really. You need intuition as well.
right.
How does that play out in something that's obviously logical?
Well, like, so your potential for problem solving is more intuition, your ability to learn something new and like break out of some sort of repetitive pattern also is intuition. And you know, like going back, like I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I don't know how directly this impacts your question, but we talk about like, okay, we're going to balance the three out. Like we're going to focus on all three, and then we're going to balance them out to fatigue the intellect. Think of another time where you would utilize that kind of activity. Think of like when you go, okay, I have a deadline. I have to write this paper. I have to write it in 2 weeks. And like the first week you're going, I could write about this, I could write about that, I could bring this in, I could bring that in. Oh, I'm gonna make a point about this. And then, I'm all gonna do it from a third person perspective. You have all these ideas. 3 days before the event or 2 days before the deadline, you're like, that's out, that's out, that's out, that's out. This is what I'm doing, and I need to be able to do this by the goal, right? So when you have a deadline, is like the closer you get to the deadline, a lot of times the more you start to go into an intuitive thinking, because you're getting rid of things and you're like going, no, this is the thing that needs to be like expressed or done to achieve the deadline. And if you think about, like, you could be working on some project for 2 years and it's all going fine except for that few days before the deadline, right? That's when everything comes to a head. When there's a problem, it comes to the surface right before the goal or the deadline. So that idea sometimes where you study at the last minute, or you're gonna do something but you're like, it's not really flowing until I get close. That is also part of intuitive thinking. So now, going back to what you're talking about, you're having a problem. Even with intellect, you can explore the problem. But if you go, I have this problem and I have to have it done by 3 o'clock. Going through a whole list of past experiences is not time efficient. You have to go like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, can you start exploring things that might be from your past, but also might be like, I'm going to look up like new things I can lock into this project, like new types of code, new what do they call the little plugin? I guess the plugins, like how do I problem solve this thing? And you start doing things that are outside of your box or outside of your past experience. That also is intuition. Like that, anytime you're learning something new or stepping out of the box, you're in the intuitive mode. And so even like, I go back to, like, I don't have a computer, I just have iPads. The thing that I love about it, it's all pictures, like, for one, like my mind can just process it really quickly. And the iPad for me is relatively intuitive, like, oh,
Yes.
if I need this, I can go over here. If I need this, I can go over there. Where when I had a laptop or a desktop, I had to remember processes. Like it was not always intuitive, right? And so intuition can also be like mimicking things that you know will work, right? So like I get a new iPad, I don't like sit and read the instructions. I go, it's kind of like the old iPad, but I have to like, mimic some of the, or a new iPhone, I have to mimic some of the things I did on the old one. And then I figure more things out, right? And so
Yes.
even that idea is actually intuition. Yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense because a lot of the computer customers I help, the typically the older generation, they get stuck in, well, here's the steps I used before,
Right,
and they're
right,
not
right,
working.
Right.
And if they just looked at the picture or
Yeah.
where things had moved, they would understand what the new steps were.
Right.
So there's some of that. Okay, that makes sense.
Like
It's really a balance of both.
pictures and music are more on the intuitive side. Like lines with information is more intellect. Like this means this means that. Step 1, step 2, step 3. That's all intellect.
So that's
But
why
if-
I started having chords and music. It was the
Right.
creative side.
Right. So you started
Seeing
hearing or seeing chords.
music.
So like Heidi here was doing the process, and she said she started hearing chords of music. And if you think of sometimes like when somebody's getting healing or they do a deep meditation or they'll do some ceremony and they'll go, I think I heard a choir. Like I heard, and it's because the intuition is getting so turned on that you know all energy has a sound, a tone, right? And so you start picking up on the tones of different kinds of energies, and higher energies can sound a bit like a choir, right? And so people will have those experiences, and it's because they're in intuition.
So changing off that topic slightly, and all three of these are very interrelated, I understand. As we went into that last cycle of balancing the three brains, my intuition said, I got this. My intellect said, no, you don't. I can show you, but I don't have the tool to show you, and you're not doing it. And I know some of that self-doubt in there, but I guess my question is there a tool to know that we really do have it in balance?
Well, if you think about intuition is also like its movement, its essence. And so even if we have it in that moment, but there's still potential for growth. Where the intellect sees it as like, oh, I see this, I'm experiencing this, I like this. Let's keep it happening the same over and over again.
So more of a static rather than a dynamic.
Right. So you're trying to maintain something that is more intellect, but becomes a structure or a state, a state of being. And so and the state can still be like, oh, I'm in more order than I was, more organized. But intuition is always like this kind of movement or expansive state.
Okay.
So you're never really ever get to where like, oh, I have this expansion and I've arrived. I don't have to do it anymore. It's like, no,
Right.
It's like if you drop the rock in the pond, there's gonna keep being ripples and ripples and ripples and ripples, right? It's the same idea.
Yeah, balance is never permanent. It's always changing because
Yeah.
things around it always change.
And you're dealing with expansion of awareness and consciousness. And so it's always going to have movement. It's always going to feel spontaneous. And, at some point, the intellect takes it and goes, okay, this is good. Let's keep this. Let's repeat this. Let's maintain this, whatever. So that also is good. But when you're in more of the intuitive state and somebody says, what do you think is going to happen? The intuitive mind goes, I don't know. I have no idea. Intellect goes, well, this is probably going to happen. That's probably going to happen. This is what we could expect. That's what we could expect. Like you're basing it on like, okay, this is repeatable. Where intuition is just like anything goes, and not going to be the same next time.
Okay. Okay, I like all of that. Thank you very much.
And go ahead, Teresa, then Deanna.
Hey, Teresa.
Hey, very cool. The first go round of the aura, my higher heart took over.
Oh,
So,
nice.
the three centers were balanced, but kind of in the background, and my higher heart was really consuming the threshold. So I thought that was interesting. I'd love to know any of your thoughts on that. And then the second round, it just kind of all four centers fell into balance.
And so would you say was happening the first time?
It was interesting. It was more present. It was more when I went to tune into the three centers, the high heart came forward and it wanted to like take command of the situation, and the focus was really on breathing into that center. And then the three centers that I was balancing were in the background, if that makes sense. So one was more forward, one was more, it's there, I see it, but this is in charge. And then the next go around, of course, my mind's like, oh, you're not doing it right, make that go away. And I'm like, listen, all four centers want to play, so we're just gonna let it go. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I'd be curious if you did.
It's kind of like what I was saying to Robert, where intuition starts to be this dynamic activity or motion,
Yep.
expansion. And so as you practice the three brains and balancing them out, you're fatiguing the intellect. And so the intuition kicks in, and it takes the practice of the three brains, balancing out the three brains even deeper and deeper. So it almost like feeds itself. And so I would say almost like every time you do it and then let go and come back to it, it should be a little bit different than the time before. Like you're able to do it a little deeper, like it's a little more dynamic. It's you're starting to feel a greater sense of oneness between the three. And eventually what develops is like a pillar of light. And which is really an activation of the spine. And so the thing is like here we're talking about movement from intellect to intuition, which you could almost say is similar or the equivalent to dreaming, like dream or dream time.
Sure. There's
still something even past that. But if you can't get to intuition, what's past that is irrelevant. You need to be able to get to that intuitive thing. And so even in this practice of doing the three brains where you're balancing out, you'll start to get flashes of what's past the intuitive part. Like you'll start to get flashes of it. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you were talking, it's almost like my soul was feeding those centers. It was very, very strong.
Anytime you're dealing with intuition, you're dealing with essence, and essence is always of the soul. I would completely agree with that.
That's how I kind of felt it coming in from the high heart, because I thought that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You could say also the high heart is activated with soul essence, not lower energy, like lower nature energy. You could try all you want to activate the high heart with lower nature energy, moving it up, doing this, doing that. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
no.
there's certain, like the energy has to be refined or like cooked a bit in particular ways to activate certain things that stimulate the higher faculties. You know, it's not even so much like, oh, I realize this, I realize that. Yes, that's a role, but that even those mechanisms are because, like, if you look at it from an energetic point of view, it's not that things just got stimulated, but the energy got cooked or refined to a certain degree where it starts to produce different results as it interacts with our physiology and our emotions and our mind. And so doing the three brains is like one of the quickest ways to cook that or refine that energy. You know, you break it down and there starts to be, even within energy, there's like four components. And so the mix of those four components will dictate the quality of the energy.
Absolutely. That makes sense to me. It felt really great.
Good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Just
And then go ahead, Diana, then Cynthia.
hey, Diana.
Hi, Greg. Hi, Sam.
Hey,
How are
how
you
are you?
guys? So, Greg, this morning you said that sometimes when you are like writing down your courses that you use that pattern so your mind gets clear.
Mhm.
It's just because I've been trying to like, like bring life to a project, but I'm so confused. Like I have like 200 ideas and one day I want to do this and next day.
Right,
So what I'm hearing is like if I follow this pattern,
right,
I'll be able to be clear and just like
right.
be sure.
By the end of the this weekend, you
Yeah.
should be able to be super clear about your project. And you don't want to turn off the production of ideas, but you also like you want to be able to produce them and then go through, and then with intuition you go, okay, good idea, but not for this. Good idea, not for this. Oh, this will work for this. Oh, like because intellect will take a lot of time to process the ideas. Intuition will know, like, this will work for the project. This I can use for something else, right? Like, so, the ideas get generated, but like how you quantify and qualify the ideas and the information and how they're going to get used, that's still intuition. Intuition processes things very quickly, makes decisions, and then adjusts and adapts, where the intellect will take a lot of time to like, okay, well, I have this idea. What about this? What about that? I'm not sure if it's going to work. It like processes things very slowly, and it kind of has to do by trial and error, right?
Yeah.
And there's a quality of it, like I can make a wrong decision, right? I need to be right. Where intuition goes, I'm gonna make a decision. If it's wrong, I'll adjust.
Yes.
Like sometimes you'll see somebody who, like, God, they go into situations, and even if they don't know anything, they just seem like really super confident when they go in there and do it. It might not be that they're confident, it might be that they're more intuitive. They
Yeah.
don't know that like, oh, I need to do this and not be wrong. They just go, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna start playing with it. Let's see what happens. Like I don't know. And it looks like confidence, but it actually is more intuition.
Great. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna stick to the class. Thank you so much.
And then go ahead, Cynthia.
Hey, Cynthia.
Hi. So I had to take a phone call and I may have missed it, but I wanted to ask about the use of threshold here with the 4 sides of the body versus the protection, the 4 steps of the protection protocol. Would threshold be something to use if maybe you're doing the 4 steps, like from last weekend? We had 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We
Okay.
did physical, mental, emotional, spiritual.
Yeah.
If you're doing that practice normally, is threshold like a go-to? I only have a moment. Or is it a whole different purpose here?
The idea of protection, like protection is like Three brains doesn't really necessarily cultivate protection, but protection helps the development of three brains.
Okay.
And part of why that is when we're having our inner experiences, we like go through and we're like, oh, I have this realization, I have this insight, I'm being reflective, I'm practicing awareness. I've just done a meditation and I experienced the light. And I was making the joke last weekend. Oh, I have this deep experience and realization. I feel this light. Okay, but now I gotta go to Costco. And how quickly does that realization, that light and bliss get sucked right out of you, right? And part of it is when we go through and we interact with things in the environment, it's natural for the mind, especially the intellect, to fixate on things that are negative because it's trying to prevent pain, it's trying to have positive experiences, it's trying to produce a desired result, right? And so part of what happens is we kind of fixate on the things that potentially can cause us pain, but wherever we put our attention on, wherever we put our fixation on, becomes our reality. So we start attracting things that are potentially negative into our mental, physical, emotional body, whatever it is, so that becomes a part of your reality. So seeing something negative in the environment, like, yes, at first we're like, oh, I don't feel the peace, but then you'll notice you start kind of criticizing a little bit, or you start grinding on the details, and it's due to that potential for fixation. And so the idea of doing protective practices is to calm that down so that, for one, you're able to emanate light more. But then in the situations, because you're doing protective practices, it allows the mind to calm down and it doesn't feel the need to like point out all the negativity around you, because it's a little bit protected. So it's like, in a way, it relaxes the mind, it relaxes the emotions, and it relaxes the instinct so that it can have different experiences. So this is why it actually helps to augment or cultivate intuition, is because it allows the mind to not feel the need to fixate so much. So then you go out to Costco, the light doesn't retract, and even you have like a negative experience, you almost see like the goodness in it rather than the negative thing, right? And so after a period of time, it starts to be where the protection almost becomes irrelevant, because you've re-educated how the intuition and intellect have been interacting. And now when you look at something, like, it could be a bad experience and you go, yeah, but like some goodness will come out, and it's really not as damaging as as my emotions would like to say it is, right? And there's really an opportunity here, like you're already seeing the light in the situation. And so, long story short, going back to the threshold, the reason why, like, threshold, and in the old days, I would use saffron for this, but saffron's really super hard to get. Like, I'm not even sure that it's going to get distilled anymore. And so the threshold and the saffron diminishes the tendency to react to painful stimuli. And so that's why it's protective, is like, you can look at something that is potentially like a negative stimuli or negative projection, and even if it's somebody grinding on you, and your body almost like won't process it like it's like a negative projection. It just goes, eh. And then you can process it and have your intuitive reaction. But in the intuitive state, even if somebody projected something super negative at you, it doesn't stick, because the thing that makes it stick is the intellect. The intellect takes the negative projection and goes, oh, this is what we do now. Like, this person's been saying really negative things. This must be the truth. Let's maintain this. Let's keep this. Or intuition is like, no, I don't agree with that. Next. Like, just, was it swipe left or swipe right or whatever it is on the, what is it on the app? Swipe left. Yeah.
Dating, yeah.
It's a dating app. Yeah, that was a test.
Okay. No, that
So,
makes
but you get the idea, like
so
the
much sense.
threshold and the intuition is like being in situations where the stimuli would be agitating to you, and it's almost like it would reduce it. Like, here's what I would say, like, even beyond that, the more the intuitive mind gets kicked in, you'll start perceiving negative situations before they even have presented themselves. And so, you know, it's a thing like amongst yogis and swamis and things, that they have to do practices, because, like, you know, say somebody is coming for like a blessing to a yogi or something like that, but like on the way they're talking crap about the yogi. Well, as soon as they get there and they go, oh, yogi, can I have a blessing? The yogi's usually very aware that you are talking crap about him, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then the yogi will just like kind of, like, I've read stories where the yogi like will chew the person out, but for what they were doing, not in his presence, right? But he knows, because he has like intuition. And so people will say, well, that was like a weird reaction. It's a weird reaction from the point of view of intellect. From the point of view of intuition, he knew what was happening, right? And the intellect doesn't get it, but the intuition totally gets it, right? So even the idea of working with threshold and like saffron and things like that is that negative things can be coming your way, and you know, there's not a lot you can do to stop it, but you can handle how you react it and not be caught off guard, and be kind of prepared and avoid it if you can. But if not, you kind of take the bull by the horns. The saffron and the threshold help with that substantially, like substantially. Like, it just, you know, you can see something coming and just be like almost like non-reactive to it.
Okay, super
You
helpful.
know, like, I've told this story where like there's this one person I went and talked to him for like months and months and months, and not really got a story in my head about him, nothing. And then I'd wake up and I'd be, that person, and like be like upset and a little bit angry at him. And I'm like, where's that coming from? That is ridiculous. Like, I have no idea why that's there. Later that day, I get a phone call and they do something obnoxious. And I was like, there you go. Felt it coming. Like, totally felt it coming, you know? And especially with this one person, I mean, he like, I won't talk to him for like 6-8 months at a time, and then I'll wake up a little bit annoyed, and sure enough, there's an interaction like that day or the next day, right? And so yeah. And then like, I'll give another example. There's this one person, not really in my life, but like at one point was. And like, I could always just sense like something weird with this person. Like, you know, there was just some weird agitation. And, you know, we haven't interacted for years, and there's no plan of interacting in the future. But, you know, we're still aware of each other. We just don't talk anymore. And I just found out that that person got diagnosed with cancer. And that's what I was sensing, like that they were having some big issue and hadn't put a lot of thought to it. It wasn't thinking about them, but just every once in a while I'd feel like there's just this weird feeling, this weird sensation, and then if I thought about the person, it would be stronger. And then the cancer diagnosis came, and I was like, that's what that was. And as soon as I realized what it was, like, I don't feel the weird sensation anymore. So it will be indicators of information or things coming your way. And it's part of the mechanism of how you put yourself in the right place at the right time. Is you sense things before they're really going to happen or happening.
Okay, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then go ahead, Kathy, then Ralph.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi there. Oh, this was so fun.
Oh, good.
I was the intuitive self answered a phone call, which I normally wouldn't.
Mhm.
And it was about a project that I'm really excited about. It's really going to be fun. And then my logical brain kicked in and went, oh, you've got to prepare. And then we did the exercises and I went, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Good. Well, good
Yeah,
for you to have something fun
thanks.
and exciting on the horizon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even ask how much they were going to pay me. It'll be fun.
That's when the logical mind kicks in. Like, yeah, this will be fun. This will be nice. Now logic. And
Yeah.
what's the pay?
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's one of my favorite topics.
Good.
Yay. And that helped me balance out and not get all stressed out. So thank you.
Good.
And then go ahead, Ralph.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg, got an oil question for you.
Yes.
So on these last items, you had the kit had threshold. I was using galbanum, and then you were talking about saffron. So if threshold's 100% effective, well, how much effective is galbanum?
Yeah, it's pretty darn effective.
Pretty darn effective.
Galbanum does something very similar. I mean the same, but like similar, not exactly the same. But galbanum is very good for reducing like that pain in the pain response. But I would say galbanum has an interesting little twist where the use of galbanum helps you to do the right thing. Like the more appropriate thing, the thing that's in like greater alignment, or that will align you better. And so that's why it's in a lot of the anointing oils, in the Christian and Jewish or Kabbalistic teachings, is because of this potential for helping with alignment and helping one to do the right thing. Or like I say the right thing, but it's helping one it's helping one like align with the light, is like probably a great way of saying it. Like it's in the Kabbalistic teachings, they say if you take galbanum every day, it reduces your potential to sin. And sinning is really just refusal of light, love, and power. Like really, if you boil it down, that's all it is. It's just refusals of either light, of love, or of creative destruction. Yeah.
Okay. In doing Three Brains, is there a particular oil for body healing or increasing health?
It depends. So like later, what we'll be doing is we'll be doing interactive things with things we know about symptom-oriented treatments, but then we'll integrate it with doing things with Three Brain.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
So it would depend on what we're trying to treat.
Okay.
We're
All
going to
right.
do a whole wave of that, not this weekend, but in later times,
Mhm.
like playing like a foundation, and then it's going to be more interactive with not just Three Brains, but with some other pieces as well.
Okay.
Like
Good.
we did the foundation of mystical healing. That's going to be play a role, and remember even the Sandalphon technique with the 7 different layers of the aura. That's all making its way back to some of these interactive things that we're going to be doing.
Fun stuff. All
Yeah.
right. Good deal.
And then go ahead, Babette.
Hey, Miss Babette.
Let's get you on.
Sorry, yes, there we go. And I'm trying to figure out who and what is this oil. Sorry, there we go. And it says anointing oil. It says enhanced meditation, healing, and psychic something or other. And also it's a traditional oil to apply to the forehead. That's the blurb on the back says. But sorry, there we go.
That's from a super long time ago.
Super long. Well, you can tell from it's white label with the caduceus and the leaves and the
Yeah.
blue pearl.
I'd
I
have to go
assume.
back and look up my old recipes. I couldn't tell you what it is.
So we don't know if that's going to even useful in place of monk's anointing oil or anything.
I make about 30 different anointing oils. Most of them don't.
Never mind.
Yeah. So I would say no. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would be interested in knowing what it is. I mean, if it's still of any, what I can do with it. It still smells good and it's full bottle and it's looks pretty good. So I would love to, if you do figure out what it is, that would be great. And it was originally $22, probably 15 years ago, better than 10 years ago, because you can just tell by how old the label is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
And then we did have some shares as well. Right when we finished that last process, not the whole thing, just doing the balancing of the sex, solar, and brain. Someone said, my mind said I had to experience that negative situation for learning. And then after the process, we had a couple people say, I loved the notes turned into a chord. And thinking of each brain center as a musical note and the 3 brain centers together as a musical chord really helped me to balance out the 3.
Oh, nice.
And thank you so much, Greg, for clarifying in such a humorous way between the 2, intellect and intuition. It was exactly how it went. And at a certain point,
that's why it was funny, is it's kind of universal. We all go through it. Yeah.
and at a certain point, I dosed a dose of that moment in balance with the 3.
Nice.
Could you do this balancing throughout the whole day?
You could, but I mean, it does take a little bit of time for you to like sit and do it. And I would say probably don't do it right before you go to bed. You can. It will enhance dreams, but sometimes what happens, I did this just last night. I did a little bit, I fell asleep, dreams started happening, and I had to wake up twice to do a brain dump because so much information was coming. And it did interrupt the sleep a little bit. I was sleeping great, and then I was like, oh, this is important. Yeah, I'm done with that. And then an hour later, this is still important, stuff like that happens. And so better during the day so that you can already be awake and do it. But if you do it at night, it will make you process in your sleep.
I've been hearing the Bjork song, It's Oh So Quiet, in my head since the second exercise. The lyrics very appropriate to the work for me.
Yeah, very nice.
Perfect balance of alertness and calm.
Oh, nice.
And then last question before lunch, what's in threshold?
Let me look it up. It's galbanum, ambrit, myrrh, ginger lily, and helichrysum. It used to have saffron in it, but I made an adjustment with the ambret just because we can't get saffron. Maybe it's going to come back around, but right now, kind of not. So